Hello and welcome to the second videos in chapter 10. We're going to be talking about the system development life cycle and what it entitles the steps or the phases of that important type of methodology that we attempt in order to solve something. Just imagine somebody comes to our business and start complaining about the different type of reporting that we do, and they're not happy with the way the invoice look like, or maybe the speed of the respond to their need is not that adequate or not that satisfactory. So then somebody complained to our customers by telling them, look, your invoice is very, very unattractive and I cannot really follow the details that shows in it. Could you please do something about it? So the end user will take that seriously and will talk to a manager about what's going on with this, with the he or she has been encountering this over and over. So what they would do, the manager will say, why don't you write me a detailed information about what is really the complaint, how did you encounter those complaints, and how frequently they are. So the end user will actually come up with a system request. The system request, it does have in details all the information that caused the problem, okay, that caused the problems, okay, and what is needed, what is required, and what is required, okay. So the system requests go into a pile of system requests, like a queue, meaning supposedly first come, first out, but that's not the case in sometimes because priority and privileges changes along with different. It goes into the uh, steering committee that oversees the system request. Let's assume that the system request was approved by the steering committee. Usually, steering committee, different members from different part of the organization that sees the or the need from a perspective of a visionary perspective from the whole corporation rather than the IT by itself. Of course, the IT is always going to be part of the steering committee. So let's assume they approve this. They said this is really very, very important and we need to fix it because if we don't fix it, then those customers who complain about it are not going to be happy anymore and we could lose them. So let's go ahead and do it. So they send that to the IT staff and they have a system or multiple, of course, system analyst. The system analyst or analyst, it depends on the size of that request, will be able to do the following. Those going to start the system development life cycle. So this is systems or initiate the process of system development development life cycle. And this life cycle really involved a methodology. Okay, the word here I want to try methodology. Okay, it's a way of how to do things. It's a bigger scope than method, and it has five phases. Five phases. The first phase is planning, which really it gives you a good idea what is required from the modification, and it result into the end of the planning stage, result into what we call preliminary reports, which talks about the cost, about constraints to this, what's really the constraints, what probably obstacles we might have in the building of the new systems or the modification of the systems, constraints, all right? You need to know cost, constraints, and it talks about also the technology that exists today, whether it's inadequate or not. So all this will be summarized into a feasibility, then it will result also a feasibility study. What is the feasibility study? It talks about 4 different feasibilities: economics feasibility, eco-dynamics feasibility, which does what? It shows if the new system if the new system is reasonably, okay, or justifiably or economically justifiable, is reasonable. And if that's the case, we'll move on to look into the second feasibility, which is technical feasibility, which is to see if we have the technology in existence. I mean, do we have really what it takes, technologically speaking, here to run the modification or the new system? Then we're talking about here, beside the technical feasibility, we wanted to say scheduling feasibility. Can it be done within a specific period of time? I mean, we're not going to spend the rest of our life doing it. Okay, so scheduling feasibility, which we call it also time feasibility. Then we have also operational feasibility. Do we have the right scale that will be able to operate it once it's ready? Do we have the operational scale? Do we have the skills to operate the systems once it's done? Operate the system when it's done, when it's corrected, when it's modified. It doesn't have to be completely a new systems. When the systems to operate the system when it's done. So those are the feasibility study that we need to check at the end of the planning, or the planning. Let's put it here. Planning is a better word than plan. And as a result, we'll be able to see if all these feasibility studies pass, then we'll move into the second phase, which is the second phase. It's going to be called the analysis phase. The analysis phase. An analysis phase is going to determine the requirement of the system. Determine the requirement of the system. You're going to be very heavy into surveys, meeting people, asking all sorts of questions to understand exactly what is needed in order to fix the problem. Then design, which we're going to bring as a result of this, is a blueprint of the solution, or the new system. Okay, it will have both logical and physical, but nothing is being built, physical design, until we move into the fourth one, which is implementation. We don't put anything together. Implementation phase, then for the first time, putting the system together, and that's the first time the user will get the chance to play with it. System together, and here it is the first time the user will be able to play with it. It includes also the user can test it, play with it, run it, do whatever it needs to be done with it in order to make sure it's really up to its expectation. Of course, the phase number 5, it's use in real world, then troubleshoot, things that start to get decayed. Okay, troubleshoot, I'm gonna stay there. Okay, and fixes. Okay, and maybe going all the way around. That's why we call it system development lifecycle, and maybe going all the way around and start again, go all the way around and start again another feasibility, another methodology based on the planning if things really not working or start to completely be decayed and out of time, out of touch with the reality that things don't stay for too long. The information system, things change very rapidly, as we all know. It's very quickly to see the demand of different demand from the user, uh, as we notice that things doesn't stay for too long. Thank you for watching. We're going to continue with other videos, but until then, I hope those two videos will give you a good idea to what needs to be done, and we'll continue with a third video soon.